Nova, do you know the most cliched way to start a podcast?
No?
By saying, imagine this.
Imagine this. You're a normal American with a normal job and normal aspirations, but you didn't always have normal aspirations. At one time in your life, you thought big, real big. Many years ago, you wanted to be a rock star. You dreamed about being a rock god in a Sunset Strip band, looping up the attention of women, men, non-binaries, whatever side you're on. You dreamed about being in a British metal band waving to arenas full of fans.
Fortunately for you, today you found a time machine. We haven't got the time to get into the mechanics of this. Let's just say that under Schrodinger's wave equation, there's always a non-zero probability that you will one day wake up in the mid-1980s. It could take several hundred times the age of the universe for this to happen, but it's a non-zero chance.
And today, it happened to you. You didn't so much find a time machine, rather, time found you. All of a sudden, you're transported to somewhere or sometime. It looks so familiar to you. The yellow sweatbands around people's heads, the boomboxes they carry on their shoulders, the tube socks, the mullets. You're in 1986.
And you're young, and you're holding a guitar. You're not shocked about this glitch in time. In fact, you are getting so stressed in 2026 that you're looking forward to this break. Excited, even.
There's only one thing on your mind in your new life: finding a band. And it wouldn't be long before you found the perfect bunch of guys to fit in with. They call themselves Skid Row.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rockers to Doctors. I'm Dorian Prescott.
And I'm Nova Starwick. Today we're doing a deep dive into 80s hard rock titans Skid Row, and we're doing it a little differently.
Technically, we're delivering this one in second-person present tense for you literary nerds out there.
If you like what you hear today, let us know in the comments. Check us out at rockers2doctors.com.
Now, let's head to 1986 in 3, 2, 1.
It's 1986, and you're a 20-year-old living in Toms River, New Jersey. Although the town was intended to be a cozy suburban hamlet, a recent surge in growth has turned Tom Rivers into a busy residential area. You've been working at the ground round on Hopper Avenue for 6 months now, washing dishes in the back while cranking your small radio. You discovered that making it as a musician in the 1980s isn't as easy as you'd assumed.
You never thought you'd end up washing dishes. On any given night, your boss would berate you. Hey, you, I told you before, I'm paying you to wash dishes, not to listen to that rock and roll. I got a whole restaurant of people out there. You're moving at 2 speeds, slow and stop. You either get your butt in gear or you're out of here. Get it? Move.
And getting out of here, Toms River, is exactly what you need to do. That's why you just recently YOLO'd what little you had left into a Les Paul and a Marshall amp. You started looking through ads for hole-in-the-wall apartments in LA where the real scene was.
That night, when your shift ends, you're frustrated about the lack of mobility in your life. You'd already been through 3 New Jersey bands and nothing sticks. You wish you could just go back to 2026 when everything sucked, but in a different way.
You walk over to the arcade where you figure a good hour of playing Dragon's Lair might help blow off some steam. While trying to slay ogres, you overhear a conversation at the table behind you. There are 2 men, roughly your age, sharing a pitcher. You continue the video game, but you can't help but overhear their conversation.
One of them says, Scotty is in. I don't think he has an amp, though. We'll need to borrow one.
The other one responds, "No problem, but did you hear back from Rob yet? We can't move forward without a drummer."
You realize they're forming a band. You feel an uncontrollable impulse to exert your existence. You turn around and declare, I am one of the best guitarists in Toms River.
They stare at you, dumbfounded for a moment. "Oh yeah," one of them says. A guy you'll later refer to as Snake. The other says, "Great, but can you sing? We need a singer."
You say, No, but when you hear me play guitar, you won't even want a singer. I play like I'm from the year 2026.
The two men glance at each other and chuckle. One shrugs. He says, Sure, why not? Come show us what you've got. He scribbles down his address on a napkin and confidently you slip it into your pocket.
There's something familiar about these guys. The names Scott, Ron, Rachel. You swear you've heard that combo before. You curse yourself for not knowing. I mean, you should know. You were a metalhead when you were a kid. It's just that the years of unrelenting yacht rock you listened to, that's REO Speedwagon, Hall & Oates, Air Supply, had annihilated all that was metal about you.
There's a lot for your new friends to discuss after you totally smoked these guys during your audition. You'd won them over with some songs you claimed to have written.
Although they have no desire to play your original songs, they particularly like the songs you titled In the End, Numb, and One Step Closer. You told them you wrote these songs in high school.
The one main issue you all discuss is the sonic logistics of having three guitarists and a bassist. You assure them it'll work out just fine.
There's the bassist Rachel Bolin and his best buddy Dave Sabo, otherwise known as Snake. The two of them had met at a Tom's River record store and decided to form the band that you are currently now in. They'd also recruited guitarist Scotty Hill, who Bolin knew from a previous club band, and drummer Rob Afuso, who Sabo knew and who had played in a Rush tribute band.
One day, you're driving to your shift at the ground round, and a song just pops into your head out of nowhere. It's a song you remember from 8th grade. It had once been a breakup song for you. You start singing, Remember Yesterday, walking hand in hand, and then you feel a rush of excitement. You say out loud, Whoa, I'm in Skid Row.
Your band begins rehearsing in Bolin's parents' garage, and his parents absolutely hate it. The music is loud and raw, just like you remember it, though you'll never confess your time traveler's knowledge to your new friends.
Either way, you're loving the sound. You'd forgotten how punk the early Skid Row material was. You can tell after just a few practices that punk is Bolan's foundational influence. Not Poison, not Motley Crue. You can hear it in his playing.
The biggest problem you all face is the singer issue. For a little while, a guy named Matt Fallon takes the mic. Now, you already know his fate in the context of the band's history, but you play along as if he's the one. You realize you're going to have to quietly twiddle your thumbs until Sebastian arrives.
However, you are at least happy to have a singer. Matt had been with Anthrax briefly, so he has the stamina. But after several months, it becomes clear that while the band's musicians have been improving and adding unique characteristics to the music, Matt just isn't getting any better at singing. Furthermore, he doesn't have the same passion or drive as everyone else. Doc McGee, who we'll get to, actually pushed for the change.
One day, you get a call from Bolin. He says, Hey, we're flying this guy out from Toronto, and he's going to audition for vocals. Trust me, you'll be impressed. You say, I'll believe it when I see it. But what you're really thinking is, this is finally it. Sebastian has arrived.
His name is Sebastian Bach. Snake's close friend's father had attended the wedding of rock photographer Mark Weiss and was blown away by the vocalist in the wedding band, 18-year-old Sebastian Bach. He was from Ontario and had recently moved to Toronto to establish himself in the city's growing hard rock and metal music scene. He'd flown in for this audition.
The chemistry is immediate. 5 minutes in, you realize it's true. Bach has a 4-octave range. He's also got the ability to go from delicate to demolishing in a single phrase. He is essentially a classical vocalist who had decided to apply that gift to hard rock. That's a rare thing.
He accepts his role as the lead vocalist for Skid Row, and soon you're ready for your first full lineup gig with the band, scheduled for January 1st, 1988, at a Toronto club called Rock and Roll Heaven. The band has their 6 pieces. That is 5 actual musicians and you, whatever you are. Now, the focus has turned toward nailing down a record deal.
One morning, you're lying in bed, attempting to sleep the rock and roll hangover off for just a little longer. Your phone rings. You groan, roll over, and pick it up. What, you say?
Yo, it's Dave. We gotta talk.
Did we get a record deal?
Well, no. With a little yes sprinkled on it.
Huh?
Let's just meet at the Taco Bell.
You meet Dave there, and he asks you to pay for his burritos. While eating, he says, I have this friend. He grew up 3 streets down from me. We grew up together, listened to the same bands, played in the same circuit. We had this this agreement. If one of us makes it, he has to help the other.
He leaves you hanging there. You're wondering who he's referring to. Rod Stewart? Barry Manilow?
He says, You heard of Bon Jovi, right?
You can't help but giggle a little childishly.
Well, he's upholding his end of the agreement.
It happens just like that. In a flash, Bon Jovi's manager, Doc McGee, who is also managing Motley Crue at this point, takes on Skid Row. And then Atlantic Records, Geffen, and A&M all express interest. A bidding war ensues, but Skid Row signs with Atlantic in 1988.
This is just wonderful. All of your dreams have come true. You even feel obliged to partake in the massive, unrelenting partying, but something is wrong. No one else can see it because, well, you're from the future.
There's something fishy about the publishing deal you all had to sign with John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora's publishing company, Underground Music Company. This was done in exchange for the tour slot opening for Bon Jovi and the connections that led to the record deal. Bon Jovi and Sambora get the lion's share of Skid Row's publishing royalties from that debut album.
Your friends are too distracted to care about the fine print. You search your memory for how this whole Bon Jovi money connection pans out historically. You try to think back to all those VH1 documentaries on glam metal, but nothing rings a bell. Nah, who cares anyway? It's not like you're going to confront Bon Jovi yourself on the next episode on Skid Row.
The band signs the contract. That's what happens when you're so young and eager, and none of them fully understand what they're giving up.
As Bach would later say, nobody thought we were going to become a big band. And there is something true about that. These kinds of back-end deals are common in the industry when established acts bring up younger ones. The problem is that Skid Row became one of the biggest bands in the world, and the royalties from a 5 times platinum debut album are not small.
Sambora eventually gives his share back to the band. John Bon Jovi, however, did not. What's the story with that?
It's January 24th, 1989. Skid Row the album is released. You've been biting your nails all night between shots of vodka.
You know this is going to be a monster album. Your dreams in life have come true. You get to work in the studio, or a studio of sorts, with producer Michael Wagner. This is the guy who also produced Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, Extreme, and White Lion.
Now, let's be real. There were some rough days and quite a few fights in the studio. You didn't get to record in LA or New York. You ended up at Royal Recorders in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, in the back of a hotel.
But after just a few takes, you all realize that whatever is happening, it's magic.
This is in part because you all stayed sober during the recording. Wagner kept you all on the schedule.
You are absolutely proud of the record. The recording style is unique because it operates in 2 modes simultaneously. There's the commercial hair metal mode with MTV-ready production, the kind of radio-friendly accessibility that a band needs to break through. And then there's something harder underneath it, something pissed off and ready to break things.
The only issue you have with the album is, well, you can't hear your guitar parts in the mix. It's as if they're not there at all. However, you convince yourself that your guitar tracks are there, operating subliminally, perhaps. Youth Gone Wild opens the album, and it's doing something specific. It's evoking an archetypal identity, youth as defiance, youth as a posture against authority. The riff is not subtle, and it works because Bach delivers it like he means it.
18 in Life is a different animal entirely. It's a narrative song about a kid named Ricky who grows up wrong and ends up in tragedy. The structure is almost literary, and Bach's vocal performance is genuinely moving.
And then, I Remember You, the ballad that broke the album wide open. It cracks the Billboard Top 10 in the autumn of 1989. And once it does, everything accelerates. It's being played at high school dances. Your band is huge.
Let's put some numbers on this. The label initially pressed 150,000 copies. The album did not immediately connect. It took months. And then I Remember You happened. And it went from slow burn to supernova. 5 times platinum in the US, a top 10 album.
You basically go from club circuit to arenas almost overnight.
You lose yourself in the wave of excitement for a while, but there's one thing you can't ignore, no matter how hard you try. Sebastian. He's a problem, and the problem keeps getting bigger. You know how the story ends, and you're wondering if you might be able to change it, to change history. Maybe somebody just needs to confront him, you think.
You feel like Sebastian Bach is a once in a generation vocal talent who possesses almost none of the emotional or social tools required to manage that talent at that scale. And the collision between what he could do and who he is, that collision produces both the greatest moments in your virtual time in Skid Row and the conditions for the band's destruction.
You understand that Bach is operating at a level that most of his contemporaries simply aren't. His range is an oddity in a genre that already expects a wide vocal range. His ability to control dynamics, to go quiet and intimate before blowing the roof off, is a trained skill that most hard rock vocalists don't have. His father was a painter, and clearly there was artistic depth in that household. You understood that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So, why would you thwart the momentum by calling your friend Sebastian on his shit?
Your reluctance to be confrontational lasts only so long. You're becoming miserable on tour with each day that passes. For instance, there's the 1989 incident with the bottle. You're opening for Aerosmith in Springfield, Massachusetts, December 27th. This is one of the biggest shows of your life. Then someone throws a bottle onto stage. Bach throws it back, hits a young woman who is not the thrower. Then he jumps into the crowd. The result is criminal charges, assault and battery. He pays a 6-figure settlement.
And then, in a separate incident shortly after, Bach puts on a t-shirt that was thrown to him by a fan in the audience. The shirt reads, "AIDS kills dead." He wears it in Los Angeles. Rachel Bolan had warned Bach not to wear it before the show. Bach put it on anyway.
The night this happens, you're so pissed. Though you have a hard time staying angry because, well, you're from the future. You know that Bach has spent years apologizing for wearing that shirt. He's donated money to AIDS causes. He's been consistent in his regret. Still, Bolan has recently started calling Sebastian sociopathic, above the rules.
So here you are, mid-tour and miserable. You tell Bolan that you'll confront Sebastian. Why the hell not? You're the oddball in the band, after all.
One morning, you knock on Sebastian's hotel room door. And you knock and knock until finally 2 prostitutes open the door. He wobbles your way, Sebastian, that is, holding a bottle, his hair wild and eyes wired. "Hey, man," he says, "I've got some Peruvian marching powder if you're interested," he says.
You say, no, I want to talk to you about, well, your attitude, your behavior. It's really bringing us down, and I just wanted to extend some grace and...
"You're not even in the band," he barks.
That day, Sebastian gave you 2 black eyes and bit off your pinky finger. At the very least, Sebastian feels bad and pays your medical bill. He apologizes for biting your pinky finger off, and he does recognize that having one less finger will complicate your guitar playing. Not that anyone can hear your guitar parts anyway.
You've now entered the period in which Skid Row records Slave to the Grind. And this is the most important release in the Skid Row story. Not because it's necessarily their best album, though arguments can be made, but because of what it represents as a strategic and artistic decision.
You are all willing to look beyond the band drama, at least for a while, because it's time for a new album. And frankly, you're all feeling very inspired.
By 1991, the received wisdom in the hair metal space is that commercial success requires softening. Motley Crue had already started pulling back from their edge. Rat, Dokken, and others were chasing radio friendliness. The conventional move for Skid Row, coming off a 5 times platinum debut, is to make Skid Row 2.
You and your band members decide not to do that.
You all go out for dinner one night at the Ground Round and have a long, mature discussion.
Sebastian says, "Man, we already got the hits. Let's be true to ourselves and not bow to anyone else's expectations."
No one disagrees, though you are secretly hoping to throw down a few Hall & Oates covers on the album. Bolan says, "This album needs to be heavier than our debut. I mean, I feel we really held back on that album."
Not just that, you say. I don't know if you guys are sensing it, but I feel like the tide is starting to shift. I just get this sense that this entire genre we're boxed into is going to implode soon, like this year in September specifically.
Your bandmates look at you cross-eyed. If only you could tell them that you're from the future. In September, Nirvana's Nevermind would come out. Well, that wasn't the destroyer of 80s metal. The genre's demise began well before grunge. It was the symbolic death blow, the public affirmation that the culture's taste had changed from wanting songs about partying, sex, fun, and Satan to wanting songs about being depressed, hopelessly hooked on drugs, and hating your father.
You try to sound less like a prophet and more like a realist. The cultural moment is already shifting, guys. I mean, listen to all the bands that have come out during the last year. They're all carbon copies of carbon copies. Everyone is essentially writing the same song. We're Skid Row, and we're classified as a hair metal band. We carry the aesthetic baggage of that label, and we need to.
Sebastian interrupts. Transcend the category at exactly the moment the category is about to collapse.
You head into the studio, though your mood is a little sour. Prior to departing, the band allowed you to showcase a song you claimed to have written. You hoped it'd end up on the album and make you rich. You recorded an acoustic version of a song they'd never heard before because it didn't exist yet. You said, "This is called The Black Parade." They didn't like it.
In fact, Bolan said to you, "How about you take a back seat on this album?"
The recording process is bliss. The album, Slave to the Grind, ends up being heavier than the debut, significantly heavier. Even though your guitar parts are barely audible, if they're at all. You recorded the title track live in the rehearsal room before you went to the proper studio. Michael Wagner tracked and mixed it in an hour, and what ended up on the record is that single live take.
The album has tracks that touch speed metal, they're so heavy. Get the F Out is essentially a punk song. Riot Act is aggressive in a way that has nothing to do with MTV. And yet, the album also has Wasted Time and In a Darkened Room, ballads that demonstrate Bach's full emotional range.
And here's the result. Slave to the Grind debuts at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling 134,000 copies in its first week. It is, and I want to say this clearly, the first heavy metal album to debut at #1 in the Nielsen SoundScan era. The first. No heavy metal band had ever done that before.
We've called this move in other episodes the pivot that should have saved them. And it might have under different internal conditions. But now, the tour. The tour that would be the wildest ride you've ever been on. Tour that highlighted how Skid Row took the escalator to the top and the elevator to the bottom.
Thank you, everyone, for checking out part 1 of our Skid Row deep dive. If you like this episode, check us out on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, and iHeartRadio.
We've got some pretty cool things lined up this spring and summer, including our first interview and live coverage at a 3-day music festival.
Come visit rockers2doctors.com. Until then, stay loud, stay curious, headbanging with a hypothesis.